Hey everyone, in our next episode of Women Who Rise, I meet with self-made 8-figure entrepreneur Justin Nelson, CEO of one of the largest virtual assistant companies in the US and growing all the time. He shares his principles for personal success, as well as how to leverage yourself to grow in your own industry further, faster. Make sure to follow us so you don't miss out on this pivotal conversation on the next Women Who Rise. Welcome to the Women Who Rise podcast, the podcast for ambitious women. I am so excited to have my special guest today, Justin Nelson. He is founder and CEO of an incredible company that is on the cutting edge of leveraging your business. It's called Sphere Rocket, and I'm so excited to have him here today. Hi, Justin. Thank you so much for being here. A few things about, we're talking about having women be more successful in their business, whatever that looks like, whether it's the real estate industry, whether it's the medical billing industry. I have multiple clients who have benefited from your service. I am one of them. And so for me, it's one of those hackable tools, right? When I think about elevating women inside of their world and being able to, do the heavy lifting of being an entrepreneur, having a company, or, even just leveling up in their own world or their own life, or even figuring out how to wear so many hats. Many of us are moms. We're in the middle of, multiple things. We've got kids sports. We've got, our own careers to think about. Maybe we also want to travel. Maybe we're planning family vacations. And so there's just so many hats that we all wear, and life just seems to be so fast these days. Yeah. So it for me, I think, VAs, first of all, just being in your world a little bit for the last year or so as a customer, and having, your father, who's a good friend of mine, share with me the different ways that he was able to utilize VAs. And then also already in the last year, being able to share with friends of mine, and coworkers and people in the industry and in other industries, how they can expand how to use VAs. This has really blown my mind. I got to be honest with you, because, I know you have a house VA and all that. So I have many questions for you. But first, let's just get into it. What is your origin story? So I'm using maybe a Marvel Cinematic Universe term here. Yeah. But, can you tell me a little bit about what had you be able to become a successful entrepreneur? And then, what had you think about VAs, and kind of what's behind Justin? How did this all work? And welcome.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for having me, Heather. And, you kind of touched on the story a little bit. My father, and he got into real estate when I was roughly 14 years old. And, he's not really a tech savvy or a marketing savvy guy. And, he's a hard worker, but wasn't really good in the marketing world. And so when I was 16, he allowed me the opportunity to come into his business and kind of see the real estate realm is where we got started. And, at 16, I had nothing but time, right? I was a busy kid, but I fell in love with the industry. I fell in love with commissions. I thought I was going to go be an engineer. And I figured out whoa, if I sell like 10 homes a year, I can make more money than if I was to be an engineer. And I just loved the unlimited capped potential, or uncapped potential, should I say, of real estate. So, as soon as I turned 18, I got my license. And because I had been in the business a few years, relatively fast, within about a year and a half, I was already running my dad's now team that he had launched over the last few years. So, 19, 20, 21 years old, I was making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year, an amazing income for the age, right? I was super blessed. And yet I was burnt out, right? I was looking around, I was able, because I was single, no kids, I was able just to run until the wheels fell off, right? And yet I looked around and I was like, wow, how does everybody else do this, right? How do people with spouses do this, with kids do this, with families do this? And, obviously that wasn't a part of my life at that point. So I just kind of turned a blind eye to the question. And I was like, I'll get there one day and figure out, so, keep going on in my story, 23, 24. I just burned out, right? And I had an awesome coach come into my life. Her name was Tara, and she was like, hey, you should really consider a virtual assistant, right? And I was like, what's a virtual assistant? She's like, oh, it's someone from the Philippines that makes $4 or $5 an hour. And immediately, because I have a lot of good ethics in me, I was like, what? That doesn't sound ethical. Do they speak English, right? What's their education level? Is that even secure? Like, I run like a pretty a business with wire transfers and social security numbers. And like, I had all these limiting beliefs, right? And she pointed to me and said, Justin, where are you going to go today after you get off work? I'm like, well, I'm going to probably stop by the gas station, 7-Eleven, and then I'm going to go to Walmart, and then I'm probably going to go home and watch some YouTube videos. And she's like, every company you just named, 7-Eleven, Walmart, Google, they all use virtual assistants. Right. And so my mind was kind of blown. And then from there, I got my first VA, right? Amazing. All of my limiting beliefs were blown, right? I got my first awesome executive assistant, paid her $4 an hour, and she was so thankful, right? She's like, our minimum wage is $1 an hour. So you've elevated my life 4x. And then COVID hit, right? COVID hit around then. And the whole world kind of turned virtual, right? So whether it was, Heather, let's say if you were my awesome executive assistant, it didn't matter if you were in the state you live in or if my assistant was in the Philippines, the mileage is the same between me and you on Zoom, right? And so it really kind of took off for me at that point. And then, the story's pretty much sphere rocket from then, right? I launched a virtual assistant company. And, I started to have friends go, Justin, how did you get your awesome VA? And I started to get all these requests. And I was like, all right, I'll help you find one too. And next thing you know, I woke up one month and I had 50 people asking me to do it. So I did it for them, evolved into a business, and now 5 years later, we've helped almost 9,200 people, get virtual assistants.
Incredible. I mean, even just to take a pause, first of all, I love there was so much in everything you shared. Just first of all, wow, being a young person that really was going for it at that age and was someone that, saw not only that you could really rock it, in your job, but also that was unsustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And that, even at a young age, no wife, no kids at that moment, that was not a sustainable job. And this is why we talk about all the time, I've been in the sales industry a really long time. And in every type of sales, there is a burnout. And, it is, like you say, an uncapped potential income and all of those things, but there is this massive burnout that can come with it. And this idea of leveraging and duplicating your efforts, like you said, contrasting that with or comparing with those big companies, that's what they do. Mm-hmm. And I think we tend to think as entrepreneurs, maybe we're supposed to just do all the heavy lifting, and that, that we're supposed to just figure it out, and that we're not maybe a true business owner if we're not somehow running around crazy, and trying to figure out how to do a 5 a.m. workout and finish work itself at 10 o'clock at night. And, because otherwise we're not really owning it or something. I think there's some idea where it's like our creation and, we have to protect it. So just the fact that already when you were young, you realized I am productive, therefore this is not sustainable. And it was because you were successful that you realized you needed to get help, and that even though you could be amazing and do it at the time, that was not something that was going to be continuing. Mm-hmm. So I love all of that. What are your thoughts about that immediate transition for you when you first got that executive assistant? In what material ways did that really change your life? In the moment?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously from a business standpoint, I was able to reinvest my time into whatever I wanted to, right? So at the time with obviously no wife, no kids, I invested it back into lead generation. So I was able to double my business with no more effort, right? But, as kids came, or not kids, as my wife came along and things like that, I now had the fundamental practices of, I could now reinvest that extra time back into spending it with her, right? Which is an investment in and of itself that's well worth it. And, I always think that sometimes, when people in the United States own a business, right? And we think the only way that we can get help is spending 40, 50, 60 grand a year. Like, I think a lot of us don't hesitate to hire someone because we don't want to hire someone. We, in the back of our brain, go, can I afford 40 grand? Can I afford 50 grand? Because, like, even if you're making $200,000 a year, $50,000 off your 200,000 that's 25% going to an assistant, right? And so I think it's really interesting. I think a lot of times we say, oh, business owners want to do it all of themselves. I think it's actually like a protective instinct of like, well, I don't want to hire someone yet. Like, I'll hire them when I get to 300,000. I'll hire them when I get to 400,000. And yet, so we're trying to protect ourselves, protect our family, and do it all ourselves so we can have more income and more stability. But it's kind of backwards, right? We have to be able to take a little bit of risk to actually make our family a little bit safer, right? And the VAs are a great way to do that. Is I don't have to go risk 50 grand a year salary. I can go and get someone for 8 grand a year that can be just as effective, right?
And that's the thing, that just as effective. And I've heard from some people, even just inside of the industry, who maybe dip their toe in the waters of that and either, weren't sure how to utilize the help or didn't find that it was fitting. And then, of course, yes, I have plenty that they could not even imagine doing their business without it. So I think it's kind of one of those things. And one of the things that I think is hackable and that I wanted to get into with you is, what is the right way to determine, what VA to get and how to implement them, because yes, if I'm wearing 5 hats, which one do I replace first?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like that first idea, first question. And then I think also, what do I need to put into that VA, and how maybe can the company help me do that so that I am scripting what they do the same way we do with any other job. And there was one thought that I had a minute ago, which is also, I remember having that fear of wage laws, employment laws, where do I put this person if I'm employing them? How do I track them so when it comes to VA versus that, maybe domestic, local worker, for me, that I remember as a very busy realtor, I kind of, like you say, wanted to hire someone. I was ready to give up that portion of my ego or control or whatever, my hair was on fire. I was ready to go, but I was concerned. Could I give this full-time 50,000 a year worker enough work to keep them busy all year? Could I also, could I learn the U.S. employment laws quickly and stuff? And if you've never had an employee yet, all this can be daunting. So I'm sure you can address a few of those things.
Of course. So I always tell people, right, when I had my first $50,000 a year assistant, you said it perfectly, right? I had to learn laws. I'm sure I broke some accidentally, right? And so, but what I found with VAs is, a lot of times people will start off with them in a contractor status, right? Which gives you more flexibility. And, not to get too nerdy here, but there's a lot of good tax treaties between the US and the Philippines that were created so that companies could hire, and have a lot of protection and, a little bit less red tape. And so whenever I'm looking at kind of at your first part of your question of like, well, what are the best things to kind of do to make sure you fundamentally have success with them? I could give you a lot of fancy answers, but especially if you're listening to this and you've been someone that's tried a $50,000 a year hire before, you feel this sense in the first month, right? Your first month of hiring, you're like, all right, I'm about to pay them 4 grand. You feel this sense that you just have to dump everything on them, and you unfairly judge them because you want them to be so productive so fast because you're spending a lot of money on them, right? And so what I actually find is I'm going to give you some tips and tricks here in a minute, but tips and tricks aside, I find that when you hire someone and you're only paying $600+ a month for a full-time worker, you don't feel this sense of like having to have them know everything, right? Because a lot of times when I would sit there in my office, I'd look at my assistant, and unrightfully so, I would look at him and go, I feel like I'm just burning money. She'd come ask me a question and I'm like, I'm paying you 4 grand a month. Why are you asking me that? And that was unfair. Like, that she was asking me good questions. Yet my VAs, like, Heather, you're probably busy just like me. If I have a busy day and I didn't talk to my VA all day long and she was making $4 an hour, okay, I just kind of took a step back and went, as a leader, I was busy. I didn't have time to meet with her today. She didn't get a lot done today because I'm still in training with her. But I didn't beat myself up and went, man, I just spent like $1,000 not meeting with them today, right? It was the same cost as me going to lunch, right? Was what I lost. And so I was a little bit kinder to myself when I had someone that wasn't, making as much money. But to them, they were making a lot of money, right? And so it was kind of this like pros and cons thing that worked out really well. But what I tell people is if you're wearing 5 hats today, you got to get off the things that you don't like, right? And that sounds pretty cliche. But a lot of times people will try and hand off their lead generation or their customer service or their different things. And, I'm going to go really radical here on you for a second. The thing that I did to figure out what I needed to get off my plate, I strapped a GoPro to myself for 2 weeks straight and videoed everything that I did for 2 weeks. And my team analyzed that footage. And what they did is they started to replace all of the things that were small first to give to my assistant. Hey, every Tuesday, Justin orders groceries. Wait, Justin, your grocery list is the same every week or pretty close. Let's give that to your assistant, right? I wasn't trying to give to my first assistant, go lead generate and close a $10,000 commission check for me. I started to give away all the little things that ate my time, right? Very simple task that no one could mess up. All of us on average, when we've done a study, there's 112 average small 5 to 10 minute tasks that we do that should be given off right away, right?
That's incredible what you just said. And when I just even think of the math, and I don't have a calculator in front of me, but 112 small tasks, and we're talking about, 10 minutes each, I can think of a number of them right now. I I also had to laugh at strapping the GoPro for, a couple of weeks. That's pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
But I think point taken. And, there are a lot of coaches out there that will say, do a time study.
Exactly. Yep.
Sit down and do a day to 2 weeks. And I can now see how that actually fits quite well into how am I spending my time, every 15, 20, 30 minutes in a day. I mean, literally just get a piece of paper, a notebook, and you don't have to strap a camera on your head, but just go be conscious and thoughtful about how you're spending your time. And I know that it does two things. One, it actually makes you more thoughtful about how you want to spend the next day's time, but it also would give you that window into revealing what it is you're spending your time on. And I also liked what you said with regard to, take the smaller tasks off your plate first. I can imagine a couple of things about that. One, yes, you're actually gaining back probably gobs of time that you don't realize are going away. And if you do a time study or the GoPro method, you can figure that out. But you also are able to give away stuff that probably does not require an intensive amount of training on your part to that new VA employee that you can literally just kind of plug and play them because you are giving away your simplest tasks and not the ones that require a higher level of skill, training, and maybe knowledge about your business or how you sell. Or
it's all about quick wins, right? It's addictive, right? When you look up next week and they have 20 things they're doing for you, even if they're very simple, you feel like you're having success, right? In real estate, I used to get this one all the time. Well, I want a VA to do my transaction coordination. Well, that one might take 10 files across 120 days for them to fully understand the way you want things. And the whole 120 days, you're like, man, I just don't feel like we're there yet. Right? Versus, hey, if I can get all my time back. And it's really interesting, Heather, from the perspective of, especially if you're talking to a lot of moms, right? Like I'm still pretty close to when I was a child, right? I'm 28 now, so I'm growing away from it. But when I started the company, I was 23. And, I looked back to when I was 15, 16, and I was definitely a mom's kid, right? Like I loved my mom, super close to my mom. And she was a transaction coordinator for a big team. And I can tell you how many times I would text my mom little things. Hey, we're out of this or we're out of that. Can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? Where if my mom had just had a VA, she would have gotten so much time back, to do more things for herself, right? And so I think that's the other thing that's kind of a note here. It doesn't have to be all about your business, right? Especially for
Mhm.
moms that wear a lot of hats, right? House stock, right? There's things that your kids' calendars, your kids' baseball schedules. When are you supposed to bring snacks to the game, right? When are you supposed to pick your kids up? Like we see so many parents now, if they hire a VA, sure, the business tasks are good and you can build a whole army over there of people to help you with your business. But a lot of times your home life is actually the most chaotic thing, where if we actually fixed your business a little bit, you're still going home to chaos at the end of the day. And you're like, well, I'm having to, it's always about remembering, right? It's like, well, I got to remember this kid's schedule versus an assistant goes, hey, don't forget you have to leave work today at 3 o'clock because you got so and so, right? It's someone else to help you think, right? So you don't have to think about everything.
Love that way of thinking, someone else to help you think. It's like someone who has your back when you're out there just running, 100 miles an hour and trying to make everything work. I can speak personally. I just, planned a graduation for my son and all that kind of stuff. And actually, I liked doing that. He just graduated
Yeah.
from university. I liked doing that part of it. But if I did not have assistance,
Yep.
so number one, I could use an assistant to help me plan. And I actually did use one or two of my assistants to do some of it.
Yeah.
And I do have, full disclosure, in-person employees as well. But on top of that, I actually got to choose how I wanted to spend those 3 days or that week or so leading up to it. And I got to choose to be in the chaos of planning, my son's graduation and think about what style of cake and, whatever. This was actually fun for me. And I love, planning my own vacations and doing the research and all that kind of stuff. But I get to choose because I actually had people definitely getting my back at work.
Yeah.
And that's like the other side of it is that if you really have that support, you can do more on your life side. I'm about to go away for, 3 weeks abroad. And, I've already kind of told my team, I don't want to be bothered during that time. But the VAs are a critical piece of that.
Yeah.
And I've started understanding now, not just me leveraging the VAs that I've hired, but actually letting people who are inside my company leverage those VAs as well.
Absolutely.
Having a social media VA, which was a huge game changer for me. And it, all I do is think about content. And when I'm on the fly, grab a snapshot of this or a picture of this or a video of that, but I'm not having to then develop that into a post. I just get tagged on the post after it's done.
Yeah.
And I've now got people inside my business doing that. So let's talk specifics like, what, for anyone, say that they're inside of a corporation, they want to break the glass ceiling, they're working really hard, they're hoping to level up. Maybe they're, like I said, inside a corporation, there might be rules about how they could utilize a VA. How does that look for someone like that? Is it just like, let's take tasks out from home, or what would you think?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, we have a lot of people inside corporations that can also, bring VAs and an idea, right? So to the current company, we have a lot of employees that are, I'll give you a great example. We had a big corporation in the insurance realm, and they had a team member, an executive assistant, and they were making really good money. And the executive assistant got told, "Hey, we're going to bring on someone that's going to be an equal to you because you've done such a good job. You grew our business so much. We need another person just like you." And she was able to go, hey, instead of bringing on another equal to me, if you just gave me an assistant, I would be able to probably increase my production and what I can handle with you by 30%. And they're like, well, yeah, but we don't want to pay 50 grand for an assistant. And so she actually recommended if I could get a VA at 8 grand a year, you're going to save a whole bunch of money by instead of hiring another 60 grand a year person like myself. And now I get to do more. My income gets to rise. And, in her case, she used the VAs as well on the side to do a whole bunch of stuff for her at home as well. So, there's a million different ways that you can, slice it, right? We also have people in full transparency that make a really good corporate income, right? I had a gal a few weeks ago. She's like, hey, Justin, I make 150 grand a year in my corporate job. And my husband also makes 150 grand a year in his corporate job. And we make a great household income, but we both come home and we're just exhausted. right? And so she actually hired what we call a life VA. The VA doesn't work for the corporation she works at, it has nothing to do with her job. The VA just does everything life, right? Grocery stocking, coordinating their house cleaners, right? Watching the cameras so when the kids get off the bus that they make sure the kids are getting inside, right? In their case, they're so busy they don't have time to do the things that you like, Heather. Like you like planning vacations and parties. She was like, I hate that. I hate every bit of that. So her life VA for 8 grand a year, which was in their case nothing compared to their corporate salaries, they're like, man, this is awesome. When the kids need something, ordered from the grocery store, goes to the life assistant, right? When something runs out at the house, goes to the life assistant before it ever gets up, to mom and dad, from that perspective. So
I love that. I love that. And I can already see the kids going, yeah, we definitely need to restock the Snickers bars.
exactly. Exactly. Well, which for mom at corporate, dad at corporate's like, why are you telling me that? Right. Where the life assistant can sort through and sift, right? That type of situation. And, the cool thing about technology these days, it's crazy, right? So, like, I have house cleaners come in, my assistant, because I have cameras on the outside of my house, they check when did the cleaners come, when did the cleaners leave. And I actually, in my house, we're a little bit crazy, so not everybody will do this, but I have what we call turn on, turn off cameras inside my home. So during some parts of the day, they're completely off, for privacy. But when I'm not home, they actually turn on completely. So if I have contractors in my home, if I have whatever, so now like, and again, I'm an extremist example of some of this, right? But I just like to show people what's possible. I can be gone and I actually have the furnace company come to my house unattended. I have the plumbing company come unattended. My VAs will literally let them in the front door with a code that they can unlock. They'll literally watch them walk around the house. They'll do the correspondence. Like it just kind of shows you that while most people won't want to go to that extreme, some people will, and it just shows you that anything's possible kind of now in this day and age. And so you really can't say like, I always challenge people, you can't say your marriage is struggling because of XYZ not being able to be coordinated, right? You can't tell me that you're out of time for this, especially for those that are earning, a good amount of money and have some resources to put to it.
I love it. And I've actually heard that you have a camera on your laundry bin or something. So when it gets full, they call the laundry people to come. And I love it because you're kind of like the mad scientist of like VAs. But it's like you said, you're helping to make us understand what's possible. And by the way, that really hit home because I've had, two different services, air duct cleaning, and I can't remember, I think we had a small plumbing repair or something in the last month at my own home. And between me, both of my sons at university, my husband, who's an engineer and has to be off site all day for his job, it was a nightmare to coordinate with the repair people and be there. They want you there for a 2 to 4 hour chunk of time. It's like ridiculous.
And they still miss the appointment.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, sorry, man. We had to reschedule. Or, I'm driving down the road and we're literally passing each other as their van goes to back down my hill because they just missed me. Yeah, no, this is actually really huge. And you're expanding my mindset as well. Just because I just don't know that my highest and best purpose is hanging out at my house doing laundry. It's okay on a day where I'm going to be there anyway, and I'm having like a relaxing day, and that's great. But again, is that really the best use of me? Mm-hmm. And there's a concept that I was just talking with a coach the other day, and it was really, here's the thing. What is it costing you not to do this? Absolutely. And I think when we talk about entrepreneurs in particular, or anyone really with kind of a high productive job, or even let's just take someone in college or university or something, what is the opportunity cost to that dissertation or term paper or, certification that they could have obtained, or, one more client that they could have gotten for all of these. And it's not just one thing. It is a huge number, like you say, a mass of activities that we're doing. One of my coaches at one point said, let's just take your hours and figure out what is your ideal income that you're targeting this year, and then divide it on the number of hours you want to work personally. Maybe that's 40, maybe that's 60, whatever it is. So if you want to make, 300K and you're working, 2,080 hours or whatever, that's like 40 hours a week, that gives you
Yeah.
your average billing rate per hour. If you're doing tasks that someone else could be doing for 5, 10, six, even $20 an hour, then, in the normal world, then why are you not
Yeah.
hiring that person? And what's amazing is in the VA world, those $20 to $25 an hour employees are actually $4, $5, $6
Exactly.
an hour. So let's get to the nitty gritty,
Yeah.
because I know, we're nearing our end here. What what does Fear Rocket do that's different? If
Yeah.
someone had an experience with VAs before and they were maybe not finding that worked for them, maybe one, they were possibly plugging them into a job that no matter who you plug in from any country, you might have had to train them more. Maybe you're leveraging the wrong task. But also, what is it? Because I know Sphere Rocket brings a lot to the table that I've experienced from firsthand.
Yeah, so I always tell people, right, when it goes to finding virtual assistants, you have two options, right? You can go on to Craigslist Philippines and put out an ad and do it yourself. And, there's always that option. However, like you said earlier, talking about understanding US based law, if you hire US based employees, it's a struggle for someone to go online and figure out how to do a VA themselves, right, from a foreign country. And so that's where you find a lot of companies like ours who consider themselves recruitment firms, right? We help you recruit the talent. We help you onboard the talent. We help make sure that you're compliant. And yet that's kind of where most companies end, right? Like they're really good at the recruitment, giving you a VA and then going, "Hey, Heather, call me back in a month if you need any help," right? And what's interesting is those companies have been around for a long time, but I came from the real estate industry where I was inundated with training, right? I worked at a company called Keller Williams first. They were training based. And then I worked at EXP, training based. And I just there was always these portals where there'd be hundreds of videos and coaches to help me anywhere I went, right? And I was like,
Hmm.
wait, why isn't there that in the first hire world, right? You got Heather, for example. We'll just use you as an example here. Let's say you're about to make your first VA hire. You've never hired anybody before. You're a little scared. You don't know what to expect. You just don't know what you don't know. What the way that Sphere Rocket really differentiated ourselves, we said, hey, we're going to go out there and do the same thing other companies do in terms of recruitment, putting them on your team, finding you awesome, great, affordable labor. However, after that, I believe that's where our job actually begins, is after we find you the person. For us, we do a lot of cool things. Like any client of ours that gets a VA from us, we give you a one-on-one coach. We give your VA a one-on-one coach. Now, some of our clients don't take advantage of it, but those that do, because it's no extra cost, right? We're the same pricing and usually cheaper than other companies. But now you have someone that you can call Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's not a support line. It is literally your one-on-one coach. You know their name. They're US-based coaches that are usually making six figures plus in their business, and they're going to help you go, hey, Heather, you have your VAs doing way too hard of task or way too easy of task, and they help you make sure that in the first month, second month, third month, you're getting as much production as you possibly can, right? So we really believe in kind of like a done with you, right? Most people go out there, just give you the VA. We believe that giving you the VA should be the basis. Like that should be just the base level of what we can do for you. From there, it's like, hey, how do we teach you what we've learned over the last 9,000 hires of pros and cons and things to do, things to not do, to make sure that you have success, that you grow and you scale, right? So, there's 30 different benefits I could list off, right? I know that you have a list of them as a partner with us, but just a few of my favorites, right? I throw 4 events per year in Dallas, right? They're 3-day events. All clients are welcome to come to them for free, right? They're 3 days. We feed you breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you come out and just learn, right? Everything about growing your business with VAs, right? So you're getting to meet 200 other people that also have VAs in a foreign country that are in the same industry as you, or maybe in different industries as you, so we just have all these little extra benefits to make sure that you have the best chance of success. And then, obviously those that have success, most VA companies, they will start to stack charges on you if you get a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth. We're a little bit different. We don't really change our pricing when you need a second versus a fourth versus a fifth. We stay flat, right? Which is why a lot of people come to us, because they're able to scale their team without having to pay us more money for every hire we make. Because, in full transparency, I'm happy if you have 5 VAs. That means you're having success, right? I don't need to go charge you a whole bunch of money, because if you went from 2 VAs to 5 VAs, it means you are doing something really right. And that's when we as a company start to get referrals and things like that, because you're having success. But that's a differentiator for us, right? Is that we're able to pass that back on to you and give you items that no other company is able to give you, from that perspective.
It's definitely a couple of the benefits you just mentioned that I did not realize. I did to some extent because I interviewed three or
Of
four
course.
VA companies when I chose you guys. And then I did definitely early on as a customer, I was able to figure out as well how these things were different. But for my first VA, I wasn't really sure. There were kind of two sets of tasks that I needed help with.
Yep.
On the one end, it was kind of like programming and some different programmatic things that I was looking for.
Yep.
On the other hand, there was some social media stuff and some video editing things that I needed. And I really didn't necessarily want just one kind of VA. And yet I wasn't ready in my budget to pay for two separate full-time VAs. And I wasn't really sure if I had enough work for each one of those people to be full-time. And so again, like ethically and otherwise, and budget wise, I just decided, hey, what if I could have two VAs from the start to do the two things that I really need? They have slightly or sometimes very different skill sets. They are specialized, and I've got both on half-time, 20 hours each. And you guys could do it. You were the only ones who could do that. And I was completely amazed. For me, that was like a perfect fit. And I later actually rotated both of those guys to full-time over time. And then another thing that really makes me think is that, at one point I had my social media guy, I had a newer one, and within a month or so, I was not seeing like a best fit.
Yep.
And you guys, I know, will re-interview and provide more people and that kind of stuff. And I know you provide people to interview who already have, best fit job descriptions. You guys have pre-filtered them. And I say, I need a social media person. You're going to go get me 5 or 6 social media people to interview. You're not just throwing me out there to any and all possible, people. Which resumes you pre-screened for those kinds of skills. And when I needed help with this social media person about a month in, I actually did end up utilizing the training and coaching that you guys have behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just trusted the process. I allowed you guys to step in, and I said, yeah, I'm kind of unhappy for this or that. I would really like this or that more to be done. And I'm busy. I don't, literally I was like, I just can't take one more thing on my plate.
Yep.
You guys took that over. I am telling you, my VA, he did like trainings. You guys had him join some, I don't know, various trainings and like group discussions, gave him some protocols. Every single thing, every aspect of his job, including his one-on-one communication to me, to my other in-person assistant, everything just really dramatically improved. And I went, oh my God, there was this whole chunk of like what you guys offer, which you just described, that I wasn't using at all. And I was already like totally golden on VAs, going, wow, this is amazing. This has really changed. And this is all inside of a year. I think I hired my first VA in I guess it's been a year, May of last year. So what a huge difference. And it's like one of those things. I get what your point is, because you don't want to, fee too much the people who are using your services regularly. The same way I don't want to increase rents on my tenants who are long-term renters, because you want your clients to stay and be happy. And yes, tell other people the same. And for me, I think VAs is a massive game changer for anyone. And I really liked that you have some examples in the corporate world as well. How a person can literally go to their boss and go, hey boss, if you want me to suddenly sell 30% more this year or 20% more this year, let's help me level up, but do it in a smart way that's affordable and easy.
Absolutely.
And either I can because there are jobs that will allow you as well to go get kind of a sub assistant. This is huge. So I need to find more ways to use VAs in my life, I think. But I'm so amazed with the services that you guys have provided. And it's not like perfect. There's no absolute perfect fix ever. You got to put a little bit of time into figuring out what kind of VA you need and this kind of thing. But yeah, your company really, really helped me, figure out how best to utilize one of the people that I had hired. And I really liked him. That's the other thing, by the way, and just real quick, we gave awards. At Christmas, we were giving awards to our agents here locally, and we actually gave achievement awards and just appreciation type awards. And we ordered these lucite awards. They were very pretty. And I said, well, let's ship them to the Philippines. I may need to find like a Philippines manufacturer next time, because it was like, what? How much is the shipping? But the thing is, we did that. And we before we sent them there, we had them here in person, and we got our VAs. I think I had 4 at the time, got them all on a call. And I let my transaction manager give the one to the one who's helping him with filing.
That's awesome.
And then I had my assistant give one to one she works with all the time in social media, and then I awarded the rest.
That's awesome.
And we literally showed them the award, and we recorded the Zoom. And I'm telling you, across the board, they all cried. The smiles were ear to ear. It was so amazing. We are literally changing these people's lives, because these are, like you said, 4 times the minimum wage income. You are offering a really good, life-changing, great job.
Absolutely.
There is, for me, ethically, I was like, oh my God, this is incredible.
It's amazing.
They're helping my business, and they're able to have a better quality of life. One of our VAs, his house was getting broken into one time. He had to excuse himself from a meeting. There was literally a person coming in when he was on a Zoom with us. And within a month or so of working for us, he was able to move him and his kids and his wife to a different neighborhood, which is safer. Awesome. And he mentioned that to us, and we were like, that's amazing. And he's like, no, you guys are amazing, because you literally allowed us to change our life. That's incredible. That's awesome. All right. Any takeaway or two, 2 things that you want to say? Hey, we're about having women be successful here in any and all facets of their life. What are maybe 1 or 2 things you want to say to our audience before we end?
Yeah, no, I would always just say, well, I can never change someone's internal beliefs. It's only they can change their internal beliefs. What I always tell people is I always say that, yes, the fact that you're deserving to have some leverage and some, time back in your life does not take away from the fact that you can still do it. We all know you can do it, right? We know you can do it all. We know you can do a lot of awesome things, but it doesn't mean that you should, right? So I always tell people that, we all know you can, right? And that's not, knowing that you can do all these things doesn't give you more time back with your kids or your spouse, or whoever you want to spend that time with, right? Maybe it's a lost hobby that you've kind of had to give up, and a passion that you had to set in the closet, for your business. And we always like to know, we all out here know that you can do it, right? But it doesn't mean you should. So just know there's affordable options out there, right? If you had in your head that, hey, I got to wait till I make this amount of money. Usually with VAs, we're able to reduce that time and goal down quite significantly and give you that help a lot sooner than you thought might have been possible.
Yes, and maybe have you make that money much faster as a result.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, sky's the limit for everything. And, thank you so much, Justin Nelson, again, founder and CEO of Sphere Rocket VAs. When you tell me you're 28 again, mind blown. It's like, I just know that you are such an incredible entrepreneur yourself.
Sure.
And I think, it's like entrepreneurs can come in any package, and from any life experience and have any idea. And I think, if anything, one of the things that I get from you is just that you exemplify someone that literally just had the optimism, and self-belief to go for it. Even if maybe you thought your ideas were crazy a time or two, I think we all have good ideas, crazy ideas, and everything in between. And it's like, don't you just love those? You got to go forward. And what an incredible success you have had. And I am so happy that I get to be a part of that. And I really appreciate you for spending time with us today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Justin.
In
In this episode of Women Who Rise, Justin taught us several things of note. Number one, select the job that you personally are best suited for. Focus on that and leverage out what you do not actually excel at or what, in fact, others could be doing so that you can continue to focus on what it is no one else could or should be doing in your organization. Number two, virtual assistants can fit any industry in a very wide array of job descriptions, including part-time, and can provide massive value to scale your business. So just keeping in mind that, you can have a variety of industries, a variety of jobs, and whether it's just getting help inside your own home so you can go and bake those cookies or do that thing, that's one thing, in terms of what you're doing in your own job and in your own business. But you also could just leverage out, other parts of the job that may seem, important and higher level because you literally can access college educated, high level employees for multiple industries with broadly applicable different value sets and organizational abilities. And you can get that through virtual assistants at literally a third the cost or less of traditional employee organizational structures. Number three, age doesn't matter. Set a vision for yourself and do it. Just being an entrepreneur means that you can go beyond traditional barriers of, ability or what you might regard as certification or some social proof that you are or can be or do the thing that you're going for. And I would say just strike outside of that because success can be defined literally by one, you. You're the one who defines it. And then remember that success in one industry can carry over to success in the next. Justin had incredible early success when he was new in the real estate industry. By every marker, was wildly successful, and then just decided that he wanted to strike out and create the VA company as well. Has been wildly successful, just an incredible entrepreneur. And this just literally leads to the fact that the same skill set that can help you in one industry can help you in another. So if you're stuck in that corporate job and you're wondering, can I strike out? Well, I'll tell you, if you're successful in that corporate job, let's just see how that would look in a variety of industries that would make sense for you. And we actually have a worksheet that will help with that. So with that said, visit our website to find our episode guide and worksheet that will help you to use these tips to take action in your own life. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode of Women Who Rise.